Seti, episode 1, and I
I'm excited.
no pomp and circumstance about it or anything, but I'm not sure I could imagine a better person and place to just start talking about this. I mean, if I can look back, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, let alone a year ago, I cannot imagine. This time and this moment's going to just stick in my mind for me personally, regardless of if anyone even sees this. I appreciate you, brother, very, very much.
I'm honored. Very happy to be on your very first episode. I'm very happy for you and look forward to this experience with you.
Thanks, brother. So now that we've got that out of the way, I really want to make this all about you as much as I can. I have, and I want you to kind of go through a bit of maybe just introduce yourself starting off with, and then we'll kind of jump in. So tell me about you. Tell me about what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, I think this will be helpful to your audience, the pronunciation of my name, Seti Matua. You did it perfectly, and you always have. So thank you for that. Born and raised here in the United States, specifically in California, raised primarily in Utah. I'm of Pacific Islanders descent, and I'm married to my beautiful wife for 30 years now. We dated for 3
Congratulations.
years. Thank you.
Wow. 30,
31
33?
actually.
Is it 30? How many?
31.
31.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That is a
Yeah.
testament. Wow.
So married for 31 years, and she's a San Diego girl. We have 5 sons ranging in ages from 30 to 21. And now we have 5 beautiful granddaughters. Still living in Utah, having a wonderful time in life.
Yeah. I'm very happy to hear all this. So you mentioned your pronunciation of your name, which might be harder than mine, but so it is. So you said I said it right, but I just want to sound it out. So Seti and
Yes,
Matua, correct?
that's correct. Yeah.
Right. And I learned both of those from you, and I also learned that it is Samoa, correct? That's
Yes.
okay. All right.
Emphasis on the first A.
There's going to be some other pronunciations, I'm sure, I'm going to come up in either in this show or in others, and you're going to have to be like, Adam, that's not how that's said. So I ask for you, please, to do that. And I've got a small amount on my side with just, my last name is Gohn, and how I named, either my ex account and other things. I'm sure a lot of people thought it was Gohn, or still thinks it's Gohn. They can call me whatever, but it is Gohn. So the pronunciations resonate. So good deal. So I appreciate the background there, and again, congratulations on a lifelong marriage. That's a huge thing. What are you doing in terms of? And I'm going to frame this because I have some questions I'd like to ask you, and really turn the floor to you. Um, Up until a couple weeks ago, you and I had talked. We've known each other for years, half a decade or maybe more now. And you had recently decided to launch your own podcast, and
Yes.
I'll call it video recording from here on out. But you launched that. Can you kind of tell me what you maybe set out to accomplish and what you're doing now, and just a personal kind of flavor as to what you're wanting to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah. So initially, I would say that I was just bored and needed something to do.
Right.
But from a deeper level, I just wanted to connect with people
Okay.
and share with others my spiritual journey, my relationship with God. And in doing so, I wanted to share some of my personal experiences. And this also had to do with my family members, my sons in particular, and wanted to hear life experiences from me so that it could be a bit of a legacy for them to understand, and eventually their own children
Yeah.
understand who I am and what makes me tick, essentially. So this started out as something to do, but now it
Right.
has a deeper meaning for me.
how long did your family or your sons, maybe in particular, push you to do this? How long did you resist?
It's actually been years in the making.
Okay.
And there were times when I think they wanted to ask questions about things in my life or people in my life, but were hesitant because life happens and
Right. Right.
you get busy, and sometimes the frustrations of a dad coming home from work and wanting to have a little bit of peace eventually became, hey, just don't bug dad. He's
Right.
trying to um, trying to get through stuff,
Right.
which was unfair to me, to them, of course. But
Yeah.
now, later in life, when we have mature adult conversations, they ask these questions, but want it to be recorded. And I'm a prolific journal writer, so I have
Yeah.
volumes of journals that I've written since my youth,
Wow.
and I'm not brave enough to let them read everything yet,
Right.
but I am open and happy to share things that I think will be beneficial to them right now.
Wow. So I guess it might be a little bit of what is in your journals maybe already exists. Is it transitioning into this medium in recording, or is this kind of fresh new things?
A little bit of both, actually.
Okay.
So some of the things that I'm experiencing on a daily or a weekly basis, I'm sharing on my channel in relation to the things that the actual topics that I'd like to share for that moment.
Yeah.
But in doing so, I may recall some experiences that I had in my past that will
Right.
also solidify my belief system and what has led me to this point.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Um, how many episodes have you done then for yourself? You started a couple weeks ago, I believe, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
Yep. I
And how,
started
yeah.
mid February.
Okay. Okay. I got it. So early days, but you've planned this for so long. Maybe it doesn't feel like early days. Does it? Does it to you?
It feels definitely feels new because I'm a very private person, to be honest.
Yeah.
So the newness of not feeling awkward in front of a camera and on a mic, hearing
I've
my
got
own
that right
voice.
now. I'll just say it to you and anyone who bothers to watch this. I'm like, am I looking okay? Is everything, but
That's right.
this is about you. So that's kind of helping me. That's probably why I wanted to do this with someone else almost every time and try and generate the conversation towards that and not
Yes,
worry so much about perfection or anything. It's a first step. So,
exactly. And
yeah,
that's where the newness comes from.
yeah,
The um the stories themselves, they are obviously organic when they happen,
right.
but the recollection really almost teleports or transports me back to those experiences, and I'm feeling those emotions and feelings all over again.
Wow.
So you do have a bit of that familiarity with those experiences, and it has been um, in the works for many years.
Right.
But I'm still getting over the news. So back to your question, I've recorded now 6 episodes. I try to
Okay.
stay a couple of episodes ahead,
Right.
but my sons who do all the editing that you've been introduced to, at least one,
Yeah.
um, they're a little bit slow on getting it out for me. But we're on episode 4 as far as the YouTube channel is concerned.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, and the questions I mentioned, I wanted to ask you, which I appreciate your I'll say bravery. It's a different word I want to think of, but your bravery in wanting me to or being okay with me asking these questions right out of the chute without you ever seeing them before. So
Yeah,
that's kind of cool, and it'll also keep me on track to not ramble too much, which I've probably already done a little bit of. So we're a little after nine
not at
minutes in,
all.
so let's go right to it.
Let's do it.
So I've watched the four I think that you've had launched, and I've watched them through, and I chose episode three really because there was lots of powerful things that I hear throughout all of yours. Three was the one that had just come out when you and I decided we were going to do this, and I decided I was going to do this, so that's where we're going to start with. So, do you have pretty fresh in your mind what episode three was about, or do you want me to just get into the questions and it'll jog your memory?
Yeah, let's jump into the questions. I'm sure it
Okay.
will spark those memories again.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I was hoping you'd say that. So, and I'm going to look a little off screen because I need a little bit of notes. So I'm looking over here.
No worries.
So in that podcast, in that show, you'd mentioned almost right from the start, right when the camera opened, that you have heard feedback. I took that as feedback from either, any listeners, maybe family, maybe friends, maybe watched part of it, all of it. I'm not sure. And you mentioned some good, and some not so good. I think they probably call that constructive feedback. But
That's
I'd
right.
like to, I'd like you to just explain a little bit more about that. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. Um, at the beginning of most episodes, I've asked for feedback, primarily so that I can hear what it is the audience is hearing.
Right.
And some have talked about, you need to move closer to the mic, you need to talk faster, um,
Right.
for things like that. Some of the aesthetics as well, versus things like, I really want to hear more about why you said this.
Okay.
So I do follow up in follow up episodes on some of the questions that people ask and some of the feedback that I receive. And just as I mentioned in that episode and on every episode, I want feedback regardless of whether it's harsh,
Yeah.
critical, or flowery. I want to hear, and I actually appreciate more. I don't want more, but I appreciate more the harsh feedback, because it helps me be a better person, not just on the podcast, but in life.
Right.
So
Right.
I welcome all feedback. I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I'm pretty sure when I saw that episode and I posted some things out on X on my account, I talked about. I won't read it, but I talked about feedback and my view. It's semantics probably, but my view is that all feedback is good, even if it's bad, if that makes any sense at all. And I believe firmly, and others might too. Others may disagree with me, that we all are healers within ourselves.
Yeah,
So if I heard something that could from you that could be a criticism, um, I want to aspire. I want to create a place where I can listen and hear that and decide what those pieces help me with, even if that piece is Seti's going through a really tough time right now, and he took his day out on me. And I can appreciate that he did that, because I can now validate that I'm on the way that I want to go. Or, you know what, that's really good. And, stung a little bit, but I'm not going to take it personal. And ultimately, he's probably right. Any of those type of responses, or responses from me to what you're saying or someone else, I think is hugely important. I think it's difficult to do. But that's kind of what I'm hearing when you say that. Does any of that
absolutely.
resonate for you?
Absolutely. And maybe for the benefit of your listening audience, I can talk about, you mentioned that we've known each other for a little over half a decade, maybe even more.
Yeah,
We had a
probably
work,
has.
yeah, we had a working relationship until recently, and
Yep.
I actually reported to you.
Yeah.
And as part of that, we had our annual touch base about um, goals and objectives that we want to accomplish, or things that we
Right.
have accomplished, myself personally. And in those conversations, I remember them well, because your feedback to me on many occasions, um, sometimes were, to me, they were never critical of my job performance. They were more things that I could use to be
Yeah.
better at my job. And I always appreciated those interactions, because I felt like you wanted me to be better. And
I
because you
do.
wanted me to be
Yeah.
better, you would say things that sometimes, I think this is just my personality. People may have taken some of that feedback and said, man,
Yeah.
I don't know what this guy's talking about. But
Right.
I knew exactly where you were going with the feedback, because you wanted me to be a better person, more a better person than a better employee. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And that warms my heart to hear that's how you took it, because yes, all of it was, and you've heard me say that, and I don't view it as you reported to me. I get it. That's really what it was. But you were on my team, and you were doing and are doing. And I'll stop and say this: I'm glad we aren't working together anymore, because you and I probably couldn't have had this conversation we're having right now.
True, true.
And so now we get to be family. I
Yeah,
consider you family. I consider you a brother. And anyone who
likewise.
listens to this probably hears me say, even before I put my, silly face on a camera, I call many people brother and sister, because I consider everyone family, which is a different track. But I wanted to try and convey that the way that I could, even in our working relationship one-on-one. It was about trying to help you in any way that I can. You're doing the work, I'm supporting you. And in this lifetime, it just so happens that I was, the manager, and you're the employee. The next lifetime or the next job, maybe it's different. That's kind of how I always wanted
Yeah,
to look upon it. That's just at least how I approach things.
always appreciated, and it's always felt as well.
Yeah,
I
great.
think we should treat each other as brothers and sisters all the time.
Right. I agree. I agree. It transcends a lot of things that can get caught up in divisiveness, and
Yeah,
obviously trust needs to be earned to for some people to hear, why is this guy calling me brother? Like, he doesn't know me yet, so
right.
what's up with that? So um, I'm okay with that if that ever happens, because I believe over time you earn what you're saying. Your words match your actions, and off you go. So
Thank you.
yeah, no, that answers my question. Great. So the second one actually is about, and I'll use your words because I put it in quotes. You mentioned a tote full of journals.
Yes,
So I don't know how big this tote is. I don't know how large or if it fills a room,
it's pretty
but
big.
I imagine a room of archives in the Matua residence that you walk in and you have to you open the sheet and look at it all. So
I have the Dewey
um,
Decimal System ready, just
that's right. That's right. You have someone just waiting to digitize them all and scan them so that you have this as the legendary thing that it is. I, I I would like to hear, just as you're sitting here today, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I waited for a moment as a hesitancy so I could see it in your eyes. What are the top three things that you're comfortable with sharing with, but maybe push a little? What are the top three things that you most often write about or feel most strongly about? And I only mean the top three things, not for you to analyze into, oh my gosh, what did I write about 17 years ago? More about just, what do you think are your top three, just right here on the spot, that you write about and feel most strongly about?
I'd say, and it's the reason I started journaling in particular. Um, Struggles,
Okay. Personal
overcoming
struggles or just
per-
struggles in general? Okay.
struggles in general, but all personally related.
Got it. Okay.
And overcoming those struggles would be, or a resolution to those struggles.
Yeah.
And of course, my family.
Okay.
Yes.
So, sorry. So you said struggles, the resolution to that, and then your family.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Would
some of those
you,
are still being resolved, actually.
read my mind on a question I didn't have on there. I was going to ask, are they past struggles, present, even future ones, maybe, that, at least in this lifetime, haven't come to pass yet? So do you want to expand a little bit on any of those three?
Yeah, I think they're all tied together
Okay.
in some way, shape, or form. When I say that it's what made or drove me to write these things down in a journal, it started with a one personal struggle that I felt as a teen,
Yeah.
and it just kind of evolved into. I always think back to this funny. I'm going to date myself, of course, but you ever watch the Brady Bunch?
I
And
have, yes, I
yeah,
have. It might have been in syndication around my time, but yes, I have.
yeah,
I,
you are
I know
younger, so
it only
um,
slightly.
if you think about that, there's an episode that I'm thinking about where one of the girls is writing in her journal, and it's always "Dear Diary" and so
Right.
on and so forth.
Right.
I kind of felt like I was doing that initially. Like, man, it's just feels kind of weird to be talking to myself on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But it was a good way for me to slowly step through my feelings and understand why I was feeling that way, who I was feeling that way towards, and how I could resolve that in my own mind before I could. Because I'm a very process driven person,
Okay.
and in my in writing those things down, it allowed me an opportunity to process them on paper before I could say in
Yeah.
my mind, this is why I wrote this. And it was raw at the moment, but over time, as I continued to write these things down, it gave me an opportunity to think, okay, that thought comes from a place of hurt, resentment, or fear or anger, but it's only because of that moment.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can't use that against the person that I'm feeling that towards. I
Got it.
can just write it down on paper so that when I do have an opportunity to speak to this person,
Yeah.
I'm speaking to them from a positive place, hoping for a resolution and not a blaming and accusatory tone that would hurt their feelings just as much as it hurt mine.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, and I'm probably getting a little ahead, but this is just an outline. So it was knowing you as I do, which I know I don't know all of you. So if anyone who would typically listen to you ever hears this one, maybe they will, maybe they won't. They might wonder, well, how does Adam have any idea who Seti is? I've known him, his entire life or something like that, and I respect that. And also where I'm going with this is for the time that I've known you, 5 years or more, probably going on a decade closer. I haven't I haven't observed, or at least from my perception, is that you have struggles. You've mentioned a couple things that felt like they were reconciled from before. And I see this, calm, deep voiced man in front of me that seems very unshakable. Um, that's kind of what I come away with. But especially on that third episode that I watched and had questions about, you did talk a lot about it. So clearly, there's things that you have and are working through, and that makes sense. It's very interesting. Like I said, I mean, along this journey, and I would love, and I think you're interested in too. I would love for us to continue talking more like this
Yeah.
in a recorded fashion,
Yeah.
whatever is most comfortable for both of us.
Yeah. And
And yeah,
sorry, Adam, I think
no,
one of the main reasons why I started journaling, besides all of the, processing the feelings and the
yeah,
emotions, was I don't know about you, but I come from a generation and a culture where it's a warrior culture,
yeah,
and we are taught to eat our emotions,
yeah,
and that they're manifested through aggression. And if you are a man, you got to be a man,
right,
even if you're 5 years old.
yep, yeah,
So I couldn't share a lot of these things with my father and my brothers, even my sisters, because we are looked to for strength, and some
right.
people call it male toxicity, but
It's a traditional view.
it's a
I,
traditional view. Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. No, our cultures are very different, and I respect and acknowledge that. But even as you and I've talked, and my culture, which doesn't matter for this, we're talking about you, but um, I have a similar background in that men need to dust themselves up, and if they're feeling something, if you're
throw
feeling
some
it,
dirt
push
on
that
it.
way down somewhere in a place that doesn't come up, because you got to just take care of things.
Yeah,
If you're going to cry, make sure it's somewhere by yourself with a door closed. Get it out of your system if you need to. Blow out
yep,
the lines by yelling, and then move it on. So
that's right.
I hear what you're saying. Were your Do you think by and large that your journals are written like you're mirroring to yourself? Are you talking to yourself, or are you talking to others? Because I
One
think of
hundred
like someone
percent.
who says, write a letter and never send it, but write it to someone. So which is your approach?
It's more talking to myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's self reflections. And there are, as my sons started to come along, there are places and times where I speak specifically to my sons,
Okay.
maybe even a son in particular.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they are self reflections.
I got it. Okay. I'm going to shift tracks now for you. Is that
Yeah,
good? Okay. All
sounds
right.
good.
So I'm going to, you had mentioned a sacred place in Samoa, I believe. I have to
Yeah.
read this, so I'm going to get closer. I'm not as young as I used to be. Um, you had mentioned, and I'm probably not getting all of this right. I don't know if it was actually on the beach or near the beach, but you did mention that. And for me, beaches wherever, maybe not a particular place, are always calm and peaceful. They can be breathtaking if you take it in. Um, I wanted you to, whatever level you feel comfortable, kind of share about your sacred place, whatever you feel comfortable sharing here. But what in that does it resonate for you? Is it the particular place? Is it people that you associate with it? Is there something different? Maybe I missed, in the episode. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I talk about, for those of you who are scriptorians, the Bible talks about many of the prophets going to the mountains
Yeah.
in order to commune with God.
Right.
As a young man, I didn't necessarily look at it as a sacred place to me, but my channel is called the Black Sand Journals, and
Yeah.
in Samoa, on the island of Upolu, there is a black sand that is owned by my family, my mother's family,
Okay.
and that black sand is named Anganoa, after one of my ancestors. But my very first visit to this place as a young man, never seen it in my life.
What was your age? How old?
13. I was
13.
13. Yeah.
Okay.
My parents took us to the Black Sand Beach, and I remember as we crested the hill on the road, first of all, hearing the thundering waves
Yeah.
before we actually saw the beach.
Yeah.
I felt it in my heart.
Right. I was about to say.
I felt
Go.
it in my heart that this was my home,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
it
Wow.
never, yeah, it never. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
You can. You can.
It has never left my memory and
Yeah.
my heart, because
Yeah.
every time I go back, it reminds me of that sacred experience. And every time I needed a place to go and just sort through my emotions and
Yeah.
talk to God, essentially,
Right.
that was the place where I felt closest to myself and to God.
Yeah.
And that's why I call the channel the Black Sand Journals, because it is a reminder to me of my connection, not just to God, but
Yeah.
also to the earth, because my ancestors, my people, were not introduced to Christianity until I don't know, the 1800s,
Okay.
um, early to mid 1800s.
So prior to that, spiritual, but a different vein of spirituality.
Yes, the
Yeah.
spirituality was very connected to the earth and to
Right.
the ocean especially, but to the earth as well. So
Yeah.
we feel things related to the earth a little bit different. And that's when I talk about sacred places, everyone's going to have a different sacred place. It might even be a room
Yeah.
in your house,
It may
but
be. Yeah.
that place is a place where I can go and commune to God,
Yep.
meditate, and be alone with my thoughts.
Thank you for sharing that and for the trust. And this is almost a no, it is. It's not almost. This is a perfect kind of explanation, which I didn't want to give and won't ever, about the name of this being Conversations in Higher Vibrations, meaning you and the emotion that you're feeling and going back there and taking anyone who watches this and me back there is what matters.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
it matters a lot. And when I had this question, you've probably heard some of this about me, but I'm going to look over my shoulder and look at that picture. And
Yes.
I knew I knew a couple percent of why you named your show what you did. That picture is in an area of thousands of acres of public land that I have been visiting every year or multiple times a year if I can get there since I was 12, right around the same age that you did. Um, it didn't necessarily show up to me as where I would find God through spirituality. If at least I consciously didn't know it, but from the moment I set foot in it, it had a place in my heart, and I will go there as many times as I can until I can't put one foot in front of the other. And even during times of prayer or meditation, whatever you want to call it, um, I I visit that in my heart.
Yeah.
Yes, it's your mind, but you mentioned heart, and I agree. I won't go off on my tangents about heart, but I visit that in my heart as a sacred place. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, every time I go there and you hear those waves pounding against the rocks,
Yeah.
that feels like my heartbeat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No waves where I go. It's landlocked, but um, in a different way. And I know our cultures are different too, but so much of what I've learned about you now and what I will tomorrow and next month and a year, that wave pounding to me sounds like the silence of the woods where there's nothing
Yes.
that I hear other than my own heart and heart
Yeah.
thoughts. Yeah. So at least for me, others
Yeah.
might be like, that's a little bit of a reach, but for me,
Not
that's
at
what I hear.
all.
So
Not at
yeah,
all. It's the same thing when I go to the mountains,
yeah,
Adam. And it might be the same thing with you in this place. When I hear the wind going through the trees,
yep,
the rustle of the leaves,
yep,
and songbird, that to
yep.
me is sacred.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nailed it. You nailed it. Can we move on? You
Let's
want to
do it.
talk more? Okay.
No.
All right, let's go. All right. So I think right around when you were talking about a sacred place, you'd mentioned, and I might get this wrong, so please correct me so I respect what you said. You mentioned uh, either the temple or a temple, and I'm saying the because maybe there's a specific importance to this one, maybe even a chapel. But you talked about, and you've already done it to a certain point, so maybe you've covered it. But you talked about the sacredness there for you and for your family, and that those there with you maybe at the time that you visit it, whether it's this year or at 13, and your ancestors. And I'm going to make um, a hopefully intelligent guess that those ancestors are those that may not be in this physical body any longer, and they may not be on this earth realm, but they're there with you. Um, was I right about
Yes.
what I was hearing? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. And it is not near the same, but I'll just share this personal side. My wife happens to be a member of the same church that you are. And we had the opportunity to visit a temple in Washington, in Bethesda, the same one I have driven by because I live in North Carolina. I drive to Pennsylvania, which is where I'm originally from, which is where these mountains are. And I drove by this amazing structure all the time. I don't know how long it's been there, but they'd gone through some renovations and decided for regular people like me that they were allowed to enter that temple,
Yeah.
at least some of the rooms. And I don't know all of it, but some of the rooms, but not all. My wife could educate us on that, or educate me. You already know. And the sacredness of that temple, especially in specific rooms, which I don't know the names and I don't know the labels, and I feel chills now just thinking about it because I'm going back there in one specific room, which I don't recall, just sitting there. And there were many people around. I mean, there were probably a dozen or more people, but it felt so, I'm going to get emotional. It felt so silent that it felt like I was almost in the mountains. It just had a sacred silence to it. So in my own, small way, I think I feel what you feel maybe often when you go to either that temple or just in general when you think about that place. It makes me wonder about what it is about those structures or those places. And, there's rabbit holes I could try and take you down about frequencies and things like that. But, regardless, it's higher vibrations. And however any of us get there, as long as we get there, that's what matters. We all have our unique journeys. Does
Exactly.
that kind of make sense to you? I mean, is there anything you want to sort of talk about just in terms of that temple or just temples in general?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you hit it right on. Um, you mentioned the church that I belong to, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
We have temples throughout the world where people can go to commune with God and participate in ordinances that bind us to God through the holy covenants that we make with Him.
Yeah.
And as part of that, uh, you walk in, and my wife always tells a story of walking out of a temple at Tuxtla Gutierrez, to Mexico,
Okay.
and directly across from it, it was basically a dance studio, and they were having yoga or I can't recall what it was, but the music was blaring and it was
Yeah.
very loud.
Yeah.
But the moment you walk into those doors, it's silent.
Just kind of shuts it down.
It just shuts it down completely.
Wow.
And the intent is it's quiet so that you can feel the
Right.
spirit there.
Right.
And I think the benefit of temples is to find peace with God, with
Yeah.
Heavenly Father and the Savior Jesus Christ. And so that you can participate in those holy ordinances to make covenants with God. And
Yeah.
it's hard to do any of those things, even if I was to make a covenant with you right now
Right.
and it was noisy. I'll tell you a
Right.
quick experience. Just before we started recording,
Yeah.
we had our two oldest granddaughters here spending the night, and man, they were chaotic. It
Yeah.
was like they were two little whirlwinds all over the house. I'm like,
They could
oh,
feel you were about trying to be silent. So like, now's the
yeah,
time to amp it up.
now's the
Let's
time. Yep. And I was feeling my anxiety building.
right.
But the moment my wife said, "All right, girls, let's go to McDonald's," and they ran out the door, and there
Right
was
on.
silence, all of a sudden my blood pressure, first of all, but also my spirit just started to feel calm again.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
that's kind of what the temple to me is
Yeah.
just feeling the calm that comes through Christ.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
Maybe for anyone who listens to this, I'll give a little backstory of me, and we're going to move on to you, Seti.
Yeah.
I was raised Methodist, United Methodist, I guess it is or was. I did become a member, at least in that period of time. You did it around age maybe 8 or 10 or something.
Yeah.
I would consider myself spiritual at this point, but not religious for whatever that might mean to me. So I find God there, and I find Him in different ways. I happen to refer to Him differently than God, but it doesn't matter so much about labels. So I'll say God. But
Agreed.
thank you for sharing about that and
Yeah.
your temple experiences. Um, I was going to say this earlier, and then I remembered that I had a question about it. So can we move tracks again? Are you good with that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Forgiveness.
Mm.
You touched on forgiveness
Yeah.
and asking others for forgiveness for something you have done to them in the past, which is the part I don't know about you yet, and maybe I won't. Maybe it doesn't. Some things might be important that you and I will learn about each other. Some may not. And those who are listening to this, same thing for all of you, I would say. Some things you feel like you might need to know, but you don't have to know. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, Seti. And you may already know me enough to know where my head's at on this, but maybe you don't. And that'll be a good surprise. When you mentioned about asking forgiveness for something you may have done to others, and I understand to the level I can your intent there, which I respect. Do you think that you need or want or desire that forgiveness from others? Do you need that for you? No wrong answers. I'm just asking, do you need that for you to kind of move past it and reconcile?
Yeah, maybe my answer might come a little different than what you were expecting.
Okay.
But
I can't wait.
I
I
personally,
can't wait.
I personally believe and have been
Yeah.
taught that we need to repent daily.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
part of that repentance for me in many instances is asking forgiveness of people that I may have knowingly or unknowingly offended in some way,
Okay.
whether it's through the things that I say, uh, even in the tone that I say things, even though many times I'm saying things out of love, it may sound harsh. So as part of my daily repentance, I ask forgiveness in a broad sense because I don't know if I've offended you or someone else with the things that I've done or said.
Okay.
And my, you don't know this about me, and thank goodness, but one of the things that has been a lifetime struggle for me is anger.
Okay.
And I was a very angry, reactionary person throughout
Okay.
my life, even until recently. So I would say and do things out of my anger.
Yeah.
And it's many people have talked about when they're angry, there is that white hot thing in their mind where they
Yeah.
just can't remove it until they have injured, caused injury,
Right.
or hurt some other person. Maybe
Your
not physically, but definitely emotionally and mentally.
your reptilian brain, if you will, is taking over a fight or flight, and you happen to
That's
choose
right.
fight. Many people in my life would tell you, probably not too kindly either, that I certainly have dealt with that and continue to at
Yeah.
sometimes. Even as much as I, even the goal of everything being higher vibrations for me personally, there is still anger that comes through, and there's things I have to reconcile within that. So. Um,
Yes.
it's not surprising that you say that because of what you've mentioned. I could kind of gather that. So I get it. So I've got a couple hard questions then. Um, do you think you are asking for that forgiveness? And I get it. If you never received that forgiveness, but you somehow knew that they were hurt by you, would you be okay?
Maybe ask that one more time.
What if, let me put it this way. What if someone that you wronged without you ever knowing forgave you?
Hmm.
Would it be enough maybe to know that they forgave you? And let me try to explain what it is. So people in my life, I won't mention them because they might be not happy about that. So people in my life I have forgiven with never having told them that I did.
Hmm.
And I chose that forgiveness to let go of what I felt angry about with them. And I also forgave myself for not realizing that earlier or anything else. So both of those things, at least for me, were freeing, very freeing. So that's what I'm trying to get at for you and forgiveness. And I'm not. This isn't about right or wrong or indifferent,
Hmm.
the goodness or the
Yeah.
badness of it. It's just forgiveness in and of itself to yourself. And that's probably the next question I'll ask. I'll just ask it. Have you forgiven yourself for even things that you might not have known that you've done?
Yeah. 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 That's a multifaceted question,
You can get
but
upset for me asking it. It's okay.
yeah. But I think of it this way: if I'm walking through an apple orchard
Yeah.
and I just bump a tree and the apple falls, and I just continue on my way. At some point, that apple and the seeds in that apple will eventually rot and
Yeah.
become a tree itself. If it's
Yeah.
not, yeah, that's how I look at this scenario.
Okay. Tell,
If I
I'm
walk,
I'm I'm not there yet, so help me understand.
yeah, if I walk away, I never have a second thought about bumping the tree or the apple falling from the tree.
Okay.
But at some point, it's going to grow
Right.
and become a tree.
Yeah.
That's the same way I look at I'm asking forgiveness, but I never hear you say forgiveness.
Ah, okay. So
You may
we,
have forgiven me, and now that
right,
that tree is growing from the experience, but
right.
I don't have a second thought about what that interaction between us.
I got it. All right. I'm coming
Because I
around to
had
your,
no, I may have said something from my cultural experience, from my
yeah,
lens,
right.
that to me is natural, but to you it's like, having grown up in a different school of thought, you
Yeah,
think what he said does not sit well with me,
yeah.
but I had no clue about it. But I just
Okay,
bumped the tree.
right.
But you're going to grow from that experience, and if at some point I may look back and say, "Man, I hope I didn't offend this person." But if I did, I ask forgiveness. In my heart, I'm
I
asking for forgiveness, and I
I
hope they've
understand.
grown from that experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's great. I'd never heard it quite that way, and I love that. So, bumping a tree and it growing from that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
that's that's how bizarre my mind is
No,
sometimes
no,
when thinking about
I
those
don't think
things.
it's I don't think it's bizarre at all. Um, I have a different question, and if we can take this in a different track, and thank you for making you feel uncomfortable. You can yell at me later. Um, you mentioned about, I guess this is still on a similar topic. So you mentioned about making a lot of adjustments for people, which if you ask my wife, she says all the time, she's like, you adjust more than I've ever known anyone to do it. And I know she's coming from a good place in her heart to say, are you adjusting to your own detriment? Or are you adjusting just to please people? Which I don't think either of those things are for me anyway. Um, but you mentioned about making adjustments, all with great intentions, I'm sure. And I recalled you mentioned about your voice tone, which I think is great and calm. So it must be a time that I don't know you from, but I will. And facial expressions. And I think what you were mentioning is that people look at my face or they hear my tone and they're not hearing the underlying compassion, maybe, or empathy that's coming from that without you realizing it.
Yeah,
So, and then still, I think you also mentioned, I'm reading it here, that you were still trying to stay true to yourself while making those adjustments. So you're not being someone you're not, but you're trying to meet someone where they're at. So are you wanting to step into a higher vibration, for yourself, for the betterment of you and then others who might see that around you? Or is it more about you're trying to, like I mentioned, kind of meet a mark for someone just directly for them? And maybe it's kind of the same thing. Maybe I'm asking the same thing. So I don't know if that makes any sense or not. But do you want to maybe respond to that? Just kind of give what your sort of
yeah,
mentality is, and
yeah.
what you meant.
Actually, your question makes a lot of sense to me, and I'll give it to you in two parts. In the beginning, as a child, as a youth, I often adjusted to people as a people pleaser.
Okay.
So I
You
would,
were nice instead of kind. That's what I would
exactly,
say. Yeah,
exactly.
which
I
is
wanted
very
to make
different.
sure, yes, I wanted to make sure that if I was doing something, saying something, or in my expressions,
Yeah,
and tone of voice, it didn't portray the things that I really wanted to, I
yeah,
would quickly adjust that and say, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way because I was
right.
trying to say this,"
Yeah,
in order to appease them and make them
right,
feel better. But
right.
at the same
Which is
time, I
all.
was,
That's all good intentions. I mean, that's
that's right,
admirable, right?
that's
Yeah,
right. At the same time, I would look back at that experience and think, I don't think that was my authentic self, you
yeah.
know. But I was doing that to help that person feel better about themselves.
I understand. But there
Um,
was. I hear you saying. I might be leading the witness a little bit here, but what I hear you saying is, if you didn't feel that you were being authentic, you had a little bit of blowback or some fallout from that afterwards to say,
yeah,
that's yeah, that's what
yeah,
I'm hearing
I
anyway.
felt conflicted a bit
Yeah,
about it, even though I
yeah,
felt good that I was helping that person out.
right, got it.
Later in life, now that I've had some experience trying to figure out a better way of doing those things,
Yeah,
I still adjust, but it's not necessarily for that other person. It's
right,
for my peace.
got it.
It's to say, and we've had an experience recently about this as well. Um, there's a way that we can hold the line without being harsh, first of all, but also so that it gives us peace, that we're remaining true to what our convictions are.
It sounds a lot like healthy boundaries, Seti.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. No, I get it. You just choosing your own peace is not selfish.
No.
So I think you know that, but I'm saying it to anyone who may listen. Please know your own peace is not selfish. You choosing to be and sharing your light like you are, Seti, will help others. You may never know about it. And I kind of feel like some of that's actually by design
Yep.
that you don't know. So it doesn't feed ego or fear or worry if you don't do that. Ego might, I think all those three words are very similar or exactly the same, but your ego may be, I need people to tell me that I'm helping them.
Yeah.
And I worry that I'm said something wrong and I should adjust, or I'm fearful of what people think of me, which none of us can really, we can't, we can't expect. I'll be more direct. It's not my business what you think of me. I can only be who I am. And
Yeah.
if you like me, great. If you love me, great. If you're like, I don't know why this guy just talks about transcendental stuff all the time and wants to just be positive. He's just going to happy his way along. But like, that's, that's kind of what I'm hearing from you. So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to
And
expand any more on it, or do you want to go to the next question?
well, I think as a default
Yeah.
later in life, because I have a different relationship with my God.
Yeah.
I approach my relationship just as you mentioned before, when you're treating people as a brother or sister. I approach interactions and relationships more differently now, as a
Yeah.
seasoned life veteran,
Yep.
if I can say it that way.
No, it's great. It's great.
I approach my interactions with people so much more differently. Even the casual guy driving down the freeway,
Yeah.
I look at them now more as a child of God
Yep.
than just some random person trying to ruin my moment or my
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
And that's made a huge difference in the way that I feel peace. And it's not selfish. It's more helping myself become a better person by seeing other people as better too.
I totally agree. When I think what I hear you saying, as far as looking at them as a child of God, you view other people, and tell me if I'm off on this, but you view other people as a version of you. They might not look like you. Might not be your age. They might not be
Yes.
in the same place you are. No goodness or badness about it. Just not as calm, not as angry, not as this, not as that.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at everyone as another version of yourself, on the surface, you'd say, well, that's really selfish. And you think everyone is you. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
It's that child of God piece that we're all connected to, is what I would say.
That is true. That is true because I have no clue who that person is.
Right.
But at some point, that person may be looking at me and saying, man, that guy's a jerk. He just cut
Yeah,
me off.
that's right.
But how many people have
How
I cut
dare he?
off?
Yeah. How dare
But
he?
how many people have I cut off to get to my objective
Right.
and not had a second thought about it?
Right.
So I have to give them grace and
Yep.
remember that there are difficulties that are happening on a moment's notice
Yeah.
that I'm not aware of. And I have to give
Right.
them that grace in order to feel good about them and about
Yeah.
me.
We have no idea what happened the
Yeah.
moment before or the day before or 5 years
Yeah.
before that maybe they're still grappling with. Yeah, that's
Yep.
great. That's great. Shall we move on to the next one? You
Yes.
good? Yeah, yeah. All right. Um, you had mentioned catastrophic things that happen sometimes in people's lives, and this really stuck with me. How they, and maybe we all, tend to focus on the negative aspects and the fear and the worry, which I'd said before. I think that attaches to ego on some level. All those things are emotional things of our physical existence, not our spiritual, if you like. So something really awful and tragic happens to someone, and that's not dismissing whatever happened, but of the 9 things you might see out of that tragedy, some positive and some negative, it sounded like you were saying in your episode that a lot of people focus on negative. Can you talk a little bit just how you feel about that and what your experiences maybe have been about why there's a focus on negative? Why do you think that is?
Oh, I believe that we as natural beings, um, we thrive on the negative.
Yeah.
It,
I wonder
it's
why
uh,
that is.
it's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Because
Yeah. It's an easy emotion to have. I mean,
that's right.
it's an easy to get angry. I mean,
Yeah.
I am a testament to that, unfortunately, but yeah, it's easy to react.
Yeah,
It seems natural to react. You feel justified to react that
exactly.
way. So
Exactly. Those are our basest and most natural emotions, our
yeah,
anger and fear.
yeah,
So when I'm not a psychologist or anything, obviously, but I see in myself those things as reactions to the situation at this moment.
right.
And the negative things that we often see, especially in social media and online,
Yeah,
those are the things that get the most clicks.
that's right. That's
Positivity
right.
is boring stuff in my
Yep.
mind. But
Yeah.
also in my mind, positivity are the most important things that we need to focus on.
I I completely agree.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
that's why I try my best. That's another reason why I started this channel is so that I can be more positive in my interactions with people, even though I'm just talking to a screen.
right.
It helps me in my face-to-face interactions with people talk about meaningful
Yeah.
and, like you say, higher vibration things
Yep.
versus the things that just bring us farther and farther down into the rabbit hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. We share the same goal as far as our different shows.
Yeah.
It's the same ultimate goal. So,
Yeah.
and I love that we have a lot of similarities into it, but they're different because each of us have kind of a unique way and a unique path to do it. And yeah, and I would agree with you. Yes, negativity gets a lot of clicks, whether they're
Yeah.
real or AI driven. They get a lot of clicks, and
That's right.
that's ultimately not going to push us all in a place towards higher vibration. So very well said. Thank you, Seti.
Thank you. Yeah. And we
Um,
can see that in examples of everything in our life, political,
yeah,
social, everything that's negative is amplified in our world today.
right.
Whereas the things that come from a higher plane, a spiritual plane,
Yeah,
we're looked at as odd and weird and fanatical
right.
when we talk about these things that matter
Yeah,
more to our spirit. So
correct.
sorry, I needed to
No,
say that.
you're totally spot on. Yes. I even personally, for anyone who follows me on X, I've been on it for about a year, anonymous until a couple days ago, and so I've noticed just for me, and I don't pay too much attention to, and I prefer not to. My intent's not to look at followers or volumes or things like that.
Yeah,
But if I look at them, um, the political driven posts get exponential amount higher. And that's gratifying for a minute. But kind of like you mentioned, then you sort of look back on that. And I'm like, what did I accomplish by making that post? Maybe if I put a little bit of positivity in it, then maybe I can be good with it. But it was more just about here's what's happening and this is so awful or whatever else. And it gets a bunch of clicks. I started to feel, I started to feel hollow
yeah,
about
yeah,
it, and that
yeah,
started changing for me specifically on X um, in the September or October timeframe. So I think I kind of went internal a bit and went through a lot of things. And this is not the finished product, but this is where I've landed as to where I want to try and help others, even if it's one person, even if it's just you and me helping each other, and there happens to be a camera rolling. That's what matters to me now.
yeah. Spot
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Um, I think, how many do I have? Okay. All right. We got through 7. So let's see if we can do 2 more. Are you good to go for a little
We're doing
longer?
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. All right. So you had read something, and I actually intentionally didn't write down what you were reading from, or anything like that. You know this about me. Not everyone does, maybe, but I try not to label things.
Yes.
That's maybe a personal thing, which maybe I'll let go of. But I feel like once you kind of label something, then all of a sudden everyone thinks they know what that is, and
Yeah.
so I try not to do that,
Makes sense.
in my own way. But you, I think, had mentioned this, until that loved one has been touched and converted by spirit. So you'd read that. Actually, no, I don't think you read it. I think you said it. So you said, until that loved one has been touched and converted by spirit, to choose God. And God, to me, for those might listening, are feel different, whether that's a prime creator,
Yes.
divine creation, whatever you find most resonates. God is typically most central to it, but I think there's, in my opinion, many ways to say it. And that we should always show love and acceptance and compassion for that person, which are your words.
Yes.
Um, so you think you were talking about loved ones. I don't know if it's, who it was, and it doesn't matter, but I don't want you to feel like you have to mention that. But can you tell me of a few times when this was especially challenging for you? Meaning you can see the path, that they're right there. They're right at that fork in the road. And if you could just give them a little shoulder nudge, they would just go in a way that they would be exponentially better. In your opinion, they would be.
Yeah.
And has it been challenging? Because you mentioned about supporting the agency of a person, which I believe is free will and choice, is what you're mentioning.
Yes.
So when you noticed they were going through a dark time or a dark path, and you could see it as clear as day, you could, like a car crash about to happen, and you didn't want them, with the right intentions, you didn't want them to do that. I think, certainly for me, but many others would want to hear about, how have you been able to, over your experiences, been able to love and care for that person, but not try and give them that nudge, or not give them that gentle but loving push into a different direction because they were going down a path you knew was wrong. Within you, you knew it was wrong. Does that make sense, the question?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And I think we can deal with, I have dealt with this on a daily basis in my associations as a leader within the church that I belong to. But yes, I've had many experiences personally where the end of the road is not going to end well.
Right.
But I believe that agency is God's first gift to all of His children,
Yeah.
and that He'll never take
Well
it away
said.
from us. Yeah.
Right.
Even the first parents, Adam and Eve, as we read from the Bible, were taught, you can eat and partake of whatever fruits and whatever is available to you in this beautiful garden, but there is only one tree that I ask you not to partake of.
Yeah.
Points it out and says, but if you do, then there are consequences for it.
Right. Right.
And even in those moments, as much as He loved Adam and Eve and wanted to prevent them from the hurt that comes from, or the consequences that come from partaking
Yeah.
of that tree, He left it up to them.
Right.
And that's how we, as parents, man, it's
Yeah.
so hard to step back and say, I know this is going to hurt you, but I can't take that away from you.
I I'm reacting so much internally. I should say responding, because a reaction would be bad. I was thinking of children, and I was thinking of the unconditional love for children, and
Yes.
then you brought it forth right there.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will become less surprised, Seti, that this happens, where I'm thinking of something to try to convey and you already say it. That's great. It's going to teach me to talk less, thankfully.
No, but you're
Yeah.
exactly right. And we've seen examples in the news, in media, where people will do the darndest things to protect their children from the hurt
Yeah. Yeah.
that they should experience because that
Right.
was their choice.
It was their
And
choice. Yeah.
people often, I think I mentioned this in one of my episodes, people look at sin with very varying degrees.
Right.
I tend to look, I tend to not as much use the word sin, but rather life experiences.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those experiences to me are intended for us to learn and grow from. Then why would you deny your child the experience of growing
Correct.
from the things that they go through?
Why
It's
would you
hard.
why would you deny them to, I'd go as far to say, grow from within? Why would you
Yeah.
not want your child to grow from within?
Yeah.
This has me going down a path in my heart about soul agreements and things like that. That'll be a different episode for you and I, because
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll have to carve out time for that. But
Yeah.
that's that the agency that you speak of, and the free will and choice, and the way you kind of frame that as far as unconditional love. I mean, totally right,
Yeah.
in my opinion. That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's circumstances, obviously, like um, wanting to prevent your children from abusing drugs or pornography or
Right.
whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And we have ways to help them avoid them, teach them the consequences that come from participating in those things.
Right.
But once they do, our actions should be amplified by through love,
Yes.
that we're not trying to change them,
Yeah.
because I don't want to introduce resentment either,
Right.
because man, it's just like you said, there's just so many different things that come from it. But I've seen the difference between a parent who will love and support through those difficult situations
Yeah.
versus I'm going to lie, steal, and cheat so that my son or daughter can be protected from this,
Right.
rather than letting them go through the process,
Right.
suffer the consequences, and then see
And
what the learning experiences have been from that experience.
that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, not an easy thing, and
Yeah.
even people probably hearing this would
Tough.
it may disagree. They may disagree with the entire thing, but
Right.
yeah, it's especially if it's something that a parent looks at as a like a permanent thing that might happen to one of their children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever permanent means. But you hope that they can have small lessons and kind of figure it out really quickly and lean on you and learn from you, and then not mess up so bad.
Yeah.
But in reality, what you're saying is it's really not up to you as a parent or you as another person. Kind of like this question came from of when they choose God, if they choose God, maybe they won't. They have their own
Yeah.
agency to do that, and it's not up to any of us to save someone. It's to inspire them to decide what they want for themselves,
Yeah.
good, bad, or indifferent. So well said,
Exactly.
Seti.
Exactly. And trust me, with 5 sons, there were so many times when I was like, all right, follow me to the barn and bring the switch.
Yeah. Right. They'll be like, wait, what?
Huh? What?
Yeah.
But I learned as a dad, and my older sons will say differently than my younger sons because you
I
learn.
bet you
And
have evolved, you've adjusted,
that's
my
right.
friend.
That's right. And there was, over time, I realized that if I respond from a place of love rather than
Yeah.
a place of anger, the outcome is always going to be better.
Right. Yes, it will. Maybe not in the immediate, but it
Right.
absolutely will.
Right. And
Yeah.
they'll hate you until they realize,
Yeah.
man, dad did that for the right reason.
Well, therein insert the unconditional love
Yeah.
where, you know, your kids, your kids don't like you a lot, let alone maybe even feel like they love you, although I think they do, but it doesn't,
Yeah.
your unconditional love as a parent is to see through all of that and, take the arrows, if you will, and understand where your heart is and trust within yourself. And that takes time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's awesome. That's great. And is there anything else you wanted to,
No,
okay. So,
we'll let that horse live.
yeah, right, right. Yeah, and you'll be good at keeping me on track about this. Although I don't know if our listeners might think the same. So this is towards the end of your podcast, so we can wrap up after this. Is the last question. your first letter that I think you read during that. So I think you go through letters that you receive, I guess, from an email or something like that based on the shows, or does it come from something else? I should probably preface that.
Initially, I've been reading a lot of my own letters or letters of loved ones that have been written to
Okay.
either me or someone else.
Yeah.
But I'm really reaching out to the audience to send me letters that um, that basically convey feelings of love towards someone in a harsh situation, or maybe that person has passed and is beyond the veil. Just things that they regret that they hadn't said before they passed,
I got
or
it.
it may be varying reasons, but they're all expressions of love, forgiveness, and compassion.
Got it.
And just try to get as many letters. The letters have been trickling in. I wish I had more, but right now I'm spending a lot of time with my personal letters from people that I'm close to.
You will have more. You will
I
have
hope
more.
so.
No wishing about it. You will have more. Believe me. So your
Thanks for
first letter.
manifesting.
You're welcome. Yeah, you saw what I did there, right? All right,
Yeah.
good, good. So your first letter you read had me thinking about family, and especially when family members have had disagreements and arguments, and some that perhaps even led to a strained or an estranged relationship. Now, I know this is not a Samoan term, this is Hawaiian, and I'm going to try to get it right. So I told you at the beginning how pronunciation, so Ho'apanapano, is that Ho'apanapano? And I could get this wrong, so someone can tell me or write to me. Ho'apanapano is an ancient Hawaiian practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. And traditionally, I'm going to just read this instead of pretending I'm not. Traditionally used to resolve conflicts, restore harmony, heal relationships within families or communities. The term ho'apanapano, I think, it's translated to make right or to correct. And it involves a confession, acknowledging one's wrongs or errors, repentance, expressing genuine remorse for these errors, forgiveness, seeking and granting forgiveness, which you have been doing, and I asked questions about, and then amends. So you're making restitution or taking actions to try and rectify the situation. So it said originally this practice was conducted in group settings, meditation of an elder or a kahuna, which is a spiritual leader, focusing on collective responsibility, mutual restitution, things like that. So is there a term like that? Sorry for reading the definition like we're on Webster's, but is there a term within Samoan culture that's similar to that you can think of? Maybe you don't know, but I'm just curious.
Reconciliation and forgiveness. Yeah, very similar. It's actually the literal interpretation. It's fa'amangalo,
Okay.
which is similar to the word. I think what you're saying is uh, ho'aponopono in Hawaiian.
Yeah, it's ho'ap onopono.
Yeah,
Ho'ap onopono.
ho'aponopono.
All
Yeah,
right. I promise I'll get better.
yeah. So fa'amangalo and there are similar Polynesian terms geographically by island, but
Right.
fa'amangalo in Samoan, the literal interpretation of mangalo means to dilute.
Okay.
So when you're speaking of forgiveness, it's breaking up whatever it is that was a hardship between the two of you. You're breaking that up
Yeah,
so that it's diluted and can be digested.
I got it.
And that's in Samoan is a very important term, because obviously with relationships it requires some humility on both parts to accept that we have a difference,
Yeah.
but in order for us to overcome this difference, we need to swallow our pride and find a resolution through our humility. And
Do
sometimes that comes with making concessions,
Yeah.
Other times it comes with saying, let's forget about this, brother, and let's move on because I love you more than the sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
So,
gonna be my question that you already answered, of experiences that you have and how that works or resonates for you.
yeah.
And I'm sure it's in different ways, but is there one experience that you'd feel comfortable sharing to a certain level about that for you and another person? Whether it's, again, I consider everyone family, so I can't say family member, but how do you? Is there one experience or two that stand out to you as to how that really worked for you? Not saying effectively, but it was a hard one, but it was a great one that you went through.
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually one that has had an ongoing, I don't know if it's repetition, but you know that I go to Samoa on an annual basis. I go once a year and I spend a little bit of time with my family who still live there. My mother was one of 13 siblings,
Yeah.
and there's only one remaining sibling. So I go often to visit her and make sure that she's okay. Um, there are people in the village who have said and done things towards our family that are hard to swallow. And in one of the recent interactions, someone just did some things that were very hurtful, and it comes with financial hardship. It comes with all these additional things because of the things that they say and do.
Yeah.
In those moments, there always has to be someone who is a um, I wouldn't say it's a devil's advocate or anything like that. It's more of a voice of reason
Yeah.
who says, "Yeah, I understand that we're emotional about this. Which this thing is emotionally charged, but we have to take a step back." And in one of my episodes, when I talk about anger and
Yeah.
how I've dealt with that, one of the things that I have used as an implement or a tool when I'm feeling that way
Yeah.
is pause. And I step back, I pause, I look at the situation, and then I ask myself the question, does this benefit us
Yeah.
or does it hurt us more? And
Does this emotion at present or in the future, does it belong in your life?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Or is it going to cause additional grief and sorrow for us?
Yeah.
And surprisingly, in that last year when it was getting pretty heated, I happened to be the voice of reason, which isn't always. My siblings will tell you, I'm not always that playing that role. But in that moment,
Yeah.
if
I hear
anything, I'm the instigator or the one who is continuing to feed the flame.
I wonder
But
how long it'll be till maybe I'll never get to see
I
this
hope
side of
not.
you, but at some point, surely you'll be kind enough to let me peek behind the curtain a little bit. But
Yep, yep.
okay,
So
okay,
in that moment, I happened to be the voice of reason, and
yeah,
it allowed us all a moment to take a step back, pause, and think about, all right, how do we move forward with this? We
yeah,
said a prayer, asked for inspiration and direction, and that also allowed us an opportunity to really think about how is this going to play out if we take this route versus this route. And we took the path of less resistance in this moment,
yeah,
but I felt it was one of those things where we all had that aha moment
yeah,
where we needed to act from a place of love and compassion for these people who don't understand where we're coming from,
right,
because that's what it came down to.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
result was a little bit better than we've had in the past. We're still going to have some difficulties with this situation, but I think that epiphany, if you would,
yeah,
has helped us draw on higher powers versus what we've often done in the past.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that helped at all.
I think it's the perfect place that we conclude how we talk today. I love it, brother. Thank you for joining me and for the trust. Do hang on after this. This is the piece where we
Absolutely.
need to.
Sorry about my
Well,
sniffles. I keep getting emotional.
no, that's what this is all about. I've gotten emotional too. It went a little different. I tend to get chills all over, and you feel it differently. So, brother, thank you, Seti. I love you from the bottom of my heart. Consider
Love
you
you too,
family.
brother. This has been great.
I can't wait to talk again. So, all right,
Likewise.
yeah, good
Happy to
time.
do this. I hope we can do it again.
We will, and thanks everybody for watching.